Let's get it on then, shall we? Mwah. Welcome to Sex on the Peach, your weekly hump day dose of everyone's favourite untalked about topic, sex. Let's get honest, let's get open, let's get comfortable, and let's get in to this week's show. Friends, lovers, listeners, happy Wednesday, happy hump day, and happy sex on the peach day. Surprise, it's me. I'm back for season 5. What the hell? Of all things, sex and relationships. I mean, that came around pretty fucking quickly for me, even though, as we all know, January is a whole ass year. And full transparency, I have felt a little overwhelmed about starting this season because life, it be busy. And that's before I even start trying to think about podcast content again and what might be helpful or interesting or funny or engaging or all of the above for anyone listening, because we all know by now that I am not someone who likes just putting something out there for the sake of putting something out there. I'm not here to be chat GPTing episodes for the sake of content. You know what I'm saying? That is not why Sex on the Peach exists, and it's just not what I'm about. I want to help. I want to open up conversation. I don't want just downloads for download's sake. Like, I care. Hi, welcome back, by the way. Not me launching straight into this rant about life be lifing. But one of my favorite fitness content creators, Harriet Harper, posted this reel the other day, which felt very serendipitous, time-wise. She posted this reel, and examples in this reel used were, if you want to be a vegan, but you are afraid you won't be able to give up bacon, just become a vegan plus bacon. If you don't have time to train for an hour, just train for half an hour. Or if you've had a shit day and you think you won't be able to give a workout 100%, give it 50% or whatever percent you have available. Basically, stop being a prisoner of your own rules and create a lifestyle and a schedule that works for you. And that resonated with me a lot because I have so many issues with being a perfectionist, and I know I need to let that go. And so here we are at season 5 of Sex on the Peach. And listen, not every episode thus far has been perfect for me, but I always thoroughly research and try and cover literally every single tiny corner of a topic. And if you've been here for the previous seasons, you will know that I have absolutely no issue talking for at least an hour and a half, until I've mapped every single possible tangent and lost track of the original point. I love depth. I love nuance. I love over-analyzing things in a way that feels productive and, yes, occasionally slightly unhinged. I don't like TikTok-style sex hacks. That's not the style that I go for. I like to look at every possible thing we can within a topic. However, life is really busy and the world is extremely loud at the minute. Attention spans are fragile, mine very much included, and I probably just don't have time to do things the way I usually do. But I do have time to do things just a little bit differently. So this is going to be a series of shorter how-to episodes one topic per episode, some clear psychology, some practical tools, things that you can actually apply week to week. And yes, it will still be educational and it will still be honest and it will still be me, just a bit tighter, like a well-trained Kegel muscle. Think of this as the concentrated version of Sex on the Beach, the espresso shot rather than the 3-course meal. Like truly, you might even be able to get through an episode without your coffee going cold multiple times. It's less sprawling dissertation because, trust me, my PhD is keeping me very covered there, and just more of the stuff you can actually use. Can I even take big, messy sex and relationship themes and boil them down into something usable in 25 minutes? I guess we're going to find out together. So this season is essentially a bit of a stop chatting shit and tell me what to actually do. That is the era of this season. And of course, I would like to think it goes without saying, these how-to episodes are going to be based on my knowledge, experiences, and opinions. They are never some universal rule book for everyone's sex life. They are not gospel. They are not a guarantee. They're just some stuff that works for some people, sometimes, maybe. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and feel free to roll your eyes at me as much as you want along the way. So welcome back. And we're starting with something that feels extremely relevant, because if you are trying to maintain a sex life while the news cycle is doing whatever the hell it's doing, we need to talk. So let's get into it. Snappy season 5. Here we fucking go. Here is how to feel frisky when everything is fractured. Okay, so quick question. Is anyone else finding it difficult to maintain their sex life while the world is actively on fire? I don't know who needs to hear this. Me. It's me. I need to hear this because this is about me. If your sex drive has been a bit inconsistent lately, I would like to gently point out that everything, imagine me gesturing wildly at everything, is unhinged. Like truly unhinged on another level, to the point that I am now offended that Dev, Katie Faye and I were labelled unhinged during last season's finale, because the word now feels insulting. Anyway, I have recognized in the last however many months how hard it feels to be completely present in my sex life when everything feels so unstable. Like, these are very unstable, uncertain things that we are living through. Economic instability, climate anxiety, political complete chaos. So there's a lot going on, and I take a lot of that in. I am not someone who sits and idly watches the world go by. So for anyone else who ingests the news and the world like that, maybe this episode is helpful for you. Because I've noticed I can have two very different reactions in myself and in my body. There are some days that I just completely lose my sex drive altogether when the world and everything is feeling particularly chaotic. It's like my body just goes, absolutely not. I'm in survival mode. Don't touch me. Don't come near me. And then at other times I want sex more. It's like I want the closeness and distraction, intensity, maybe even reassurance. I mean, fuck, I think I just want to feel something that isn't dread. And I think what I'm realizing is both responses make sense, but we don't talk enough about the in-between space, the guilt and the confusion that kind of like come with times like this, because like I'll be in bed, phone in my hand, reading something mildly horrifying. I mean, truly take your pick. And then 5 minutes later, I'm meant to just switch into being a sexually open, relaxed, present human being. Be so fucking for real. It feels absurd in a way that I just don't think I've experienced before. Maybe as I get older, I'm feeling more politically aware. I don't know. I just feel like everything is trash. And then I start to think, is it weird when I want sex more, when things feel unstable? Or is it selfish to focus on pleasure when there are such huge things happening, like huge tragic things? Is there something wrong with me, with my relationship, because I don't feel turned on, because the vibe globally is bleak? Why am I feeling horny during late stage capitalism? Like, you get it. Today, we are talking about how to have sex when the world is falling apart, because all of those questions roll around in my head. And the truth is, our sex drives don't exist separately from the world, because we aren't machines as much as AI is wanting to take over. We are bodies, and we are our nervous systems. And our nervous systems read these headlines like a potential threat. They cannot separate global chaos from personal safety as neatly as we would probably like. And stress and sex have a really complicated relationship. If your body feels like things are unsafe, even in a abstract, I read the news too much way, it's really hard to relax into desire, because hypervigilance and arousal are not busy phrases. So for some people, like me sometimes, stress absolutely kills your libido. Your cortisol rises and your nervous system goes into complete fight or flight, and your body is like, sex, reproduction? Absolutely not. We are currently scanning for danger. But at the same time, connection is one of the ways that we regulate. Touch actually calms the nervous system, and pleasure can bring you back into your body. So intimacy can remind us that our life is still happening, even when the headlines are so fucking loud. So for some people, stress can do the opposite. Sex becomes a grounding space and a place that we can drop out of all that noise. But when the world feels unstable, our sense of safety basically shrinks, and desire requires a degree of safety. So this episode isn't just ignore reality and light some candles and have sex anyway. And it's also not forget it, we're all going to be celibate until society stabilizes. It's how do we understand what's actually happening in our bodies right now? And how do we create conditions where intimacy feels possible, not forced or even performative? Because I know for me, when I'm stressed, the last thing I need is another internal narrative that I'm not trying hard enough or two in my head when I'm just trying to have sex. So how do we stop doom scrolling long enough to feel back in our own body? And how do we remove the guilt that says pleasure is indulgent when things in the world are hard? So We're going to talk about what's happening in your brain, your body, and I'll try and give you and myself some practical tools, some actual usable things to help you reconnect sexually with a partner or with yourself when the world feels like it's teetering, or at least to just stop judging yourself if you feel like you can't do that right now. So yeah, we're talking about how to have sex when everything feels a bit apocalyptic, which, to be clear, is a sentence I did not think I'd be saying when I started this podcast, but here we fucking are. So let's focus and talk about the big one, our nervous system. And our nervous systems are dramatic, more dramatic than a straight MT boy between the height of 5'10", 5'11", singing Gethsemane. And it's not dramatic because it wants to ruin your life or sabotage your sex life. It's dramatic because that is literally its entire brand and entire point. It is built to keep you alive. Unfortunately, it's not there to make sure you have a consistent libido. So when it senses danger, and that danger can be a car pulling out in front of you, or it can be 30 consecutive headlines about the collapse of democracy, it prioritizes survival. And in those moments, it's not thinking about pleasure or connection or orgasms. It's just thinking about survival. Fight, flight, freeze. There's no fuck in there. It's our biology being extremely blunt. And no one ever explained that to us. No one ever explained this, that our sex lives are not just about hormones or attraction or whether we feel like it. Our sex lives are profoundly about whether our nervous systems feel safe. We were just absolutely never taught that. If we were taught anything at all, we were lucky. But even when we looked outside of the sham that is sex education and looked to the media or, even to porn, we were taught about performance and technique. We were taught about libido as this mysterious, slightly temperamental thing. But no one ever sat us down and said, by the way, if your body thinks the world is unsafe, your desire is likely going to take a back seat, which would have been really useful information, especially in the ongoing shit show that is the world. So some of us experience the nope, absolutely not version. Libido, gone. Not low, gone. That is your nervous system clocking the global vibe and saying, today we are doing survival, and that's that. And then there's the opposite reaction, which I think is kind of more confusing. Suddenly, your libido spikes because you want the touch, you want the closeness, you want the escapism, but that makes sense too, because that touch can bring us back into our bodies. And so if the world feels abstractly unsafe, our nervous systems might try and anchor us into something tangible and human. Either way, we're all just lying here thinking, excuse me, how the fuck am I negotiating sex while society collapses? And the problem is, we were never taught to see it that way. So instead of thinking, oh, this is my nervous system just doing its thing, we think, what's wrong with me? And we personalize it and we start to panic about what it means. As someone who has historically had a very high sex drive, I know I start to spiral and wonder what the hell is going on when I go multiple days without really thinking about sex, because my brain is full of dumpster fire social media posts about just absolutely diabolical behavior on a planet we're all supposed to be protecting. Like, as humans, seeing all this happening, if you care, it's so hard to get out of the headspace that everything is terrible. And I know that I then start to feel guilty and confused. That internal monologue of, am I broken? Is this normal? Should I be reacting differently to the state of the world? starts to creep in. And the answer, inconveniently, is no. I am not broken. You are not broken. You are probably just dysregulated as fuck, like the rest of us. You are a nervous system in a body in an extremely chaotic world. Of course, our desire is going to fluctuate. And part of this episode is really just permission to stop pathologizing that, to stop treating every libido shift like it has to be a relationship referendum, because sometimes it's nothing to do with compatibility. Sometimes it's just about our cortisol levels shooting through the fucking roof. So, step 1 is genuinely this simple. Acknowledge it and notice the pattern. When I'm stressed, I either shut down or I reach for more connection. Or maybe, like me, you find that you kind of go between the two. But either way, that awareness alone is really helpful information, because once you stop blaming yourself, you can actually work with your body instead of fighting it. And listen, sometimes that might involve a bit of humor at our own expense, because if we can't laugh at the fact that our bodies are currently oscillating between global panic and suddenly feral within the same evening, what are we even doing? And so now we know that our desire is affected by feeling a lack of safety. Let's talk about how we can create pockets of safety when the world feels anything but safe. How can we create safety to support our desire? First, and this feels incredibly hypocritical for me to say because I actually can't do this due to my PhD research, but set boundaries around news and social media. I know that probably feels impossible. And although this season is supposed to be about focusing on actions you can immediately apply to help support your sex life, this is one I'm sure 90% of my listeners are probably going to ignore. But doom scrolling has somehow become our communal bedtime ritual. We brush our teeth, we get into bed, and then we ingest 15 global crises before we even try attempting intimacy. And then we are shocked that we don't feel relaxed. But even a 30 to 60 minute buffer before any intimate time can make a huge difference. Not because you're ignoring reality, I know that can feel selfish, but because you're giving your nervous system a fighting chance to come down from DEFCON 1. Your body needs a signal that the world is not actively burning down in this exact second. You can care about the world and still put your phone in another room for half an hour. Those things are not mutually exclusive. And if you live with your partner or partners, this might actually have to be a conversation. Not some heavy dramatic thing, just hey, can we take a step away from observing global catastrophe before we try to be naked together? Which frankly feels reasonable. I'm very fortunate in that my partner doesn't even have social media. However, he is not so fortunate because not only am I on it, I'm taking notes on it. So I myself am having to learn to be much more structured with my social media usage and restrict it to certain blocks of time. And that's a very funky boundary for me to set for myself, because obviously I constantly feel like, oh my God, what if I don't go on it this very second and I miss something that could be a breakthrough for my doctorate? So the boundary is blurry because it's kind of like work, but I don't set a boundary around it like it's work. But I'm trying to. We're all just out here trying our best. So you also might not all of a sudden be able to start sleeping with your phone in another room. I get that. But it's probably unlikely that you can log off from UK fact check politics and want to get it on within the same 5 minutes. So just allow yourself some separation between doom scrolling and doggy style. And create some physical cues that signal safety. Now, this doesn't mean you need to transform your bedroom into a tantric retreat. It can be very simple. Just create a calming lighting state. Tidy the clutter away. Put on some music you actually like. Not what you think is sexy, but what genuinely relaxes you. Light a candle or some incense if that's your thing. Like, I hate the big light in whatever room it is, which is kind of a shame because I have some really lovely light fittings. But as soon as dusk has finished dusking, I want the big light off and the lamps with the warm bulbs on. The big light makes me feel extremely overstimulated. And I'm putting so much time into making my house a welcoming, cozy space. But let me tell you, if it's nighttime and the big light is on, I might as well be in a hospital waiting room because that's how that damned big light makes me feel. I do not want to have sex with the big light on. And that's not because I want to have sex in the dark. I love a bit of daylight. I can do 20 warm bulb lamps like a champ, but I'm not turned on until the big light is turned off. You know what I mean? So find your version of that. Create a space that makes you feel comfortable and safe and makes your nervous system feel like it can breathe. I also really struggle to study if my space where I do that is a mess. I feel a lot calmer if things are tidy and put away. I'm also the same with being in a messy kitchen or bathroom. That feels stressful to me. We just all know what it's like to walk into a space that makes us feel a bit out of sorts, whether that's our own home or somewhere else. So make the point of creating a space, even if it's just one room in your home, where you feel like you can settle. Let your body think of your bedroom or whatever your room of choice is as a space to feel safe and protected in. Also, our bodies literally respond to patterns. So if you create a small ritual, if you're partnered, even something as basic as laying on the bed and holding hands for a minute before anything else, or if you are solo, a deliberate minute of doing absolutely nothing before you touch yourself, you are teaching your nervous system, when this happens, we slow down. And when this happens, we are safe. And listen, that might feel a bit ridiculous at first because it might feel a bit like, what the fuck have I become? Do I really need a pre-sex risk assessment? But if the alternative is lying there dissociating, then yes, maybe you do. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm having to exercise a lot of mental separation and compartmentalization techniques at the moment. So if you also need a brief administrative pause before sex, don't worry, you're in good company. Next, I know people think this stuff is a bit woo-woo, but whatever. Ground yourself in your actual body, not your thoughts, not your Instagram feed, your actual physical body. Close your eyes, intentionally slow your breathing down. Feel your back and your skin against the mattress or whatever surface you are up against. Pay attention to things like texture and sensation. Narrate it in your head. This feels warm or this feels steady. I'm safe. I've had nights where I am staring at the ceiling thinking, okay, the planet is on fire. I am stressed, but maybe, just maybe I can have 10 minutes that aren't about performance or productivity or fixing anything. Surely I'm allowed 10 minutes where the only thing on my to-do list is to exist in my body. And it doesn't even have to lead anywhere, but sometimes that tiny window of safety, that deliberate pause, can be enough to shift something. Sometimes it leads to sex. Sometimes it just leads to a cuddle and an early night. Both count because both are forms of regulation for your nervous system. And allowing that safety to creep back in is what is going to start to support your libido feeling safe more regularly again. We tend to think desire should just appear, fully formed and enthusiastic and ready to go. But in times like this, it often needs to be invited slowly and just given a safer room to show up in. And that's really the goal here. Not manufacturing arousal out of thin air, just creating more conditions and opportunities where your body might decide, okay, we're safe enough that we can try. And try, in quotes, always feels like an awkward place to enter a sexual experience from. But if you are a long-time listener of Sex on the Peach, you'll have heard me talk about this a million times. Expectations kill desire. We all have that fantasy in our heads of perfect sex with orgasms for days. But when your nervous system is panicked and your cortisol is having a rave and the world is weird, that fantasy is basically a unicorn. So lower the bar. Redefine what sexual success might look like for you right now. Even 10 minutes of non-goal oriented touch counts. That is foreplay for your nervous system. No orgasm required, just noticing what your body is doing and connecting and laughing if it feels ridiculous, because it might feel ridiculous. We all get in our heads, and working out sex is messy. It is awkward. It is funny. And the best thing you can do for yourself is accept that, because you can have meaningful sexual experiences even if they look nothing like the fantasy you have memorized from movies or magazines. You can let go of performance. You can let go of expectation and still end up somewhere really fucking good, even if that is just laughing together while the world outside continues to be absurd. Okay, so now for the part where we stop talking and we start touching in whatever way works for you. As I always recommend, start with yourself. Bring it back to solo sexual practice. Touch yourself. Engage in some mindful masturbation, if you like that term. The idea here, again, isn't to chase an orgasm, as wonderful as they are. The idea is curiosity and exploration. Feeling your own skin. Pay attention to the parts of your body that have been neglected because your brain has been busy spiraling about the end of the world. It's a moment to reconnect with your own nervous system and remind it, hey, I'm here, I'm alive, I can feel. Even 5 minutes counts, even 1 minute counts, because there is no failure here. There is only noticing how things might feel right now, because things might feel a bit different. Sometimes if we are feeling a bit numb mentally, that can translate itself physically. And that's all information about your own body and how you are currently able to connect sexually. If you have a partner, that connection is everything, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Hold hands, give each other a massage, just have some playful, low pressure contact that says, I see you and you are safe. Performance-free touch is much more restorative than anything else. And again, you are just rewiring your nervous system to associate closeness with safety and pleasure instead of anxiety and expectation. And yes, talk to each other. This might not feel sexy, but it is helpful and it is grounding. A simple, hey, I want to be intimate tonight, but I'm stressed, can work wonders to just open up the conversation. You don't have to over-explain or apologize. You're a human and you are allowed to feel affected by what feels like impending doom. You're figuring it out, and that is entirely valid. And often the communicating itself makes the physical touch that follows feel more powerful and connected. I've had multiple nights where I've had to say things like this to my partner. The other week, I went to a talk by someone who had attended the Giselle Pellicot trials in France. And whilst the talk was extremely engaging, it was harrowing. And hearing about over 50 men who were trusted husbands, friends, brothers, fathers, raping this woman did not make me want to go home and have sex with a man. I was very in my head about it. And so I had to voice that and ask for some understanding. And all of that is connection. All of that counts. And the more you practice these rituals and things like that, whether it is a conversation or some time for some physical grounding, solo or partnered, the easier it all becomes to invite desire back in. It's about creating curiosity, safety, and presence in your body, whether you are alone or with someone else. Now, confession time, for me, feeling good while everything else is terrible feels really weird. Feeling pleasure while the world is turbulent and unpredictable can feel really, really selfish. But we do need to remind ourselves that pleasure isn't supposed to be a luxury. Moments of pleasure are like little islands of safety for a body and a nervous system that's binging instability all day. That pleasure is telling us and telling our body, hey, you're still here, you're still alive, and you can still feel stuff. And if your body says yes to feeling good for a few minutes, that's not indulgent. That's keeping yourself alive. And the guilt is normal because we've actually been taught to moralize pleasure. So yes, when the news is grim and cortisol is spiking, it's easy to think, should I really be feeling this? But let's reframe it. If you are feeling pleasure, that's not ignoring reality. That's actively taking care of yourself. That's showing your body, yes, I can survive this and still feel good. And that act alone is radical in a way. I've caught myself thinking, am I really allowed to feel horny right now? And the answer, honestly, is yes. Absolutely yes. It is allowed. Your body deserves these little reclamations of pleasure. It's part of taking back control, part of acknowledging that, yes, the world is shaky, but your body is still here and it wants to feel something good. So when guilt creeps in, notice it, label it if you need to, and then let it go. You are not doing anything wrong. You are just surviving, and pleasure is part of that survival toolkit. Even 10 minutes of attention to your body. That counts. It all matters. So here's your takeaway. Not me giving homework. This feels like I'm projecting and giving everyone work to do because I'm constantly on deadlines for my own homework. It's giving, if I have to suffer it, so do you. Anyway, if you too are feeling the confusion of trying to experience pleasure through panic-tinted glasses, this week, pick one 10-minute intimacy ritual. 10 to 15 minutes, whatever you feel like. Solo or partnered. And give yourself permission to do exactly one thing. Notice your body. That's it. No goals, no performance, no orgasms required. If they happen, great, of course. But just presence and awareness and connection. Let it be messy. Let it be imperfect. Let it be exactly what it is in the moment. Also optional, but highly recommended, put your phone in another room or just shut off your notifications. Avoid the news for a bit beforehand. It's pretty wild how much easier it is for your nervous system to participate when it's not constantly scrolling through global collapse. This is literally just giving your body a chance to catch up to your brain and relax into feeling. Start small. If you are solo, just feel your hands moving across your own skin. If you are partnered, notice the pressure and the warmth of skin-on-skin contact. Allow yourself to feel connected and allow yourself to celebrate that. Laugh at the absurdity of trying to feel turned on while the world is fucking unhinged. There's no wrong way to do this. You are practicing caring for your own nervous system. That is the challenge and that is the goal. And if you can do this once this week, it can be the start of opening your body again to desire and curiosity and reminding yourself that your body is allowed to feel good even in times of turmoil. And FYI, just before we close off, you all need to know this episode is for my own nervous system's benefit because clearly I need these reminders more than anyone. Friends, lovers, listeners, that's it from me for today. If this has been something you are currently struggling with and this episode has helped, amazing, and I love that. If you mostly just listen to me flail at my own nervous system, also fine. This episode was definitely rooted in that being the case anyway. I will be over here trying my very best to take my own advice, probably still scrolling the news too much, and desperately trying to remember that my own body deserves attention even when everything else feels awful. But welcome back to season 5 of Sex on the Peach. Shorter, sharper, and designed to get straight to the point. Well, straighter to the point than usual. I'm still me. I'll see you all very soon, assuming we all survive the world until then. But for now, thanks for coming. Thank you for tuning in to Sex on the Peach today, and I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. You can find and follow me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Sex on the Peach Cast, and you can also get in touch with me at sexonthepeachcast@gmail.com. Please do continue to like, share, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts, and I'll see you next week. Love, Peach.